Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Rescue Mission. I am so excited today. We actually have a special guest. So, my friend and also teammate who works on our team, does all things operations, really helps us keep everything together and moving and grooving in our business. And also a fellow ADHD peer, right? Someone who also, experiences the day to day ups and downs of ADHD. And obviously, she's another sounding board. This month it is all about ADHD. In fact, we didn't even realize when we were planning the content that it is ADHD Awareness Month for the whole month of October. So I'm so excited to have you on here, especially because I know, right? We both kind of process things differently. We have so much that we're alike, right? I always joke you're my Canadian twin
Mhm.
with how our brains are very analytical and we think through things very differently. We see operations, at this fun, high level where some people are just like, ah. So I'm so excited to have you on. We're actually digging into a specific topic. And, even before I jump there, which again, stay focused, Nancy. Let me just tell you a little bit more too about Christy. And Christy, you can obviously share your kind of journey, but I met Christy years and years ago whenever I was first starting my agency, and I really needed help setting up my customer journey, kind of my onboarding process with new clients. And Christy was just such an awesome person to work with and really helped me do so much of my business to really automate it. So, Chrissy, if you want to share a little bit more about what you do, kind of your experiences, and then we'll jump into today's topic.
Sure. So, one of my biggest areas of support right now, I've kind of done the typical ADHD journey where my business has evolved a few different times and in a few different ways. But right now, my happy place is in operations and kind of helping business owners, especially. Funny enough, I tend to work with a lot of people that have ADHD. I think you tend to attract your people and who you are, and but helping with operations and making sure that we are doing our best to try to put our best foot forward when it comes to tech, when it comes to figuring out next steps in the business. Um, you know, living in a playground of innovation and things like that. That's kind of my happy place right now. And as to how I was diagnosed with ADHD, my story is really, really similar to a lot of women my age. So I was diagnosed, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but what really got the ball rolling was my 5-year-old son was diagnosed, and he was diagnosed at school, not at school, excuse me, but the teacher made mention of the fact that she thought, ooh, there might be something going on here, just as a heads up. And we took it to our family doctor and ended up getting a diagnosis for him, which kind of opened up the world of ADHD to us. And he's 17 now. And over that time, everybody in my family's been diagnosed. So, but my other son's been diagnosed, my husband's been diagnosed, and I have now as well. Especially women, we present later, we present differently. A lot of the time with women, our hyperactivity is in our brain. So it's that racing brain. Things are always flying through our heads. We don't tend to be bouncers and really excited externally. I was as a kid. I didn't know at the time that that's probably what that was, but my kids are very silly, very spontaneous, very, all the things. So I find it fascinating to talk about ADHD just because there's such a spectrum of it in my house that it's fun for me to talk about, and it's nice to find other people that are going through it. And there's a lot of us business owners that are like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's one thing kind of brings me to our topic today, which is, right, how to beat shiny object syndrome, okay, that many of us have in business. And, on that topic, there are so many entrepreneurs, right? Because entrepreneurs think differently, right? I think I always say this, right? Humans are creative in general, but as entrepreneurs, we're hyper creative. And a lot of us, do have neurodivergent brains. We think differently. We see things outside of the box that, people who are in kind of a normal day to day don't quite see. So I always say that ADHD can be so much of a superpower if we're really able to harness it. And so whenever it comes to entrepreneurship, shiny object syndrome, let's dig in a little bit. And first, let's touch on, what exactly is shiny object syndrome and the different ways that it kind of comes up. So, shiny object syndrome, for everyone listening, it can be many different things. In fact, I used to joke, I would say shiny software syndrome, or shiny business idea, right? So it can show up in many different ways, and it's really anything that can pop up to really distract us. Okay.
Mhm.
So in our business, okay, how many of you who are listening, right? How many times have you had an amazing idea, right, for a business or an amazing service or product that you could create, right? And you get all excited about it and you're like, I want to go create this. Well, that's great. That's all fine and good. But is that really shifting your focus from what you were already working on and you're trying to optimize and build? And I've seen this so many times. The people who shift gears and are jumping from one thing to another are never fully successful, right? Because they're really painting themselves thin. So, in your experience, Christy, and working with many different clients, are there any recommendations that you have whenever it comes to the ideas, like anywhere that people can put them or things that they can do to help kind of tone that down so that people are able to stay focused?
Yeah, I actually have a couple strategies, and it's really tricky, like you mentioned, that the shiny object syndrome, because what typically happens is the dopamine starts to wear off in the current idea that you have, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this just isn't really kind of fulfilling that need I have anymore to be excited and learn and grow and figure things out. And so then, something else catches your eye, and what ends up happening is you're never actually finishing anything. So you don't have anything to show for it. You might even get the product started or the business started or the coaching started or whatever that looks like. So one of the things that is really difficult, that I tend to recommend to people is finding a mechanism to put the blinders on. It's really hard, but it's really important. And I think the biggest thing to figure out a way through that, there's a couple different strategies I talk to people about, and one of them is definitely an accountability buddy that'll help you stay the course. One of the things I do, even for day to day, because even you're at your computer, you're getting things done, and something pops in, and you're like, oh shoot, and then all of a sudden you're going in a different direction. I've always got a notepad. My notepad lives on my desk, and anytime I'm in something, I write a quick note down for something to come back to. Something else I use a lot of, is I have an ideas folder on my phone, and I use my notes section a lot. I'm like, hey, when this project's done, this is something that you can go into. And I think giving yourself permission to fall down rabbit holes is good. I think we feel guilty for doing that, but I think if you have a space and a container to do that, so long as it's not pulling you away from something else. And again, coming back to that accountability buddy to keep you on track for the thing that you want to actually get done, it is, yeah, I think that's the biggest one for me, is just to have somebody remind you that you got to stay in your lane, you got to finish and kind of get that thing set and moving and getting kind of automated and doing its own thing. And then you can start to bring in the next thing. It's really challenging.
Yeah, I like what you said. That's probably the biggest kind of
Mhm.
framework I put in place for myself is, I love the notebook, right? Having the notebook and putting, I have all these ideas. I'm like, oh, I want to create this AI GPT, and so I have little note cards, right? If it's important
Yep.
and I need to save it, I'll save this and I'll have them somewhere. Or, actually having the notes, which guys, like the notes section in your phone, whether it's an iPhone, Android, any kind of phone, I know they all have one, saving and having a naming convention. In fact, I have one. I either save things as content. So if it's a content idea, I'll do content colon topic, and then I'll do kind of my talk to text brain dump. If it's a business idea, I'll do biz idea colon the idea, and then I'll do a little bit of a brain dump. And again, it's gets it out of my head, right? I get that dopamine rush where I get to go, "Ooh," and I get to put it all out there. And then I don't have to dive into that, right? I can kind of put that on the back burner. So I think having a compartment or a place to put things is incredibly helpful. So I love those suggestions.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing, right? So we talked about ideas. Now let's
Hmm.
talk about software. Okay. Whenever it
Hmm.
comes to shiny software syndrome, right? I think right now we're in such an amazing age where technology is moving so quick. I know with AI, we're getting programs pumped out and out there at a rapid rate, programs that could really help us and make, some of the things that we get done in our business take a lot less time. What would you tell someone who is already kind of established? They've already got their softwares in place, but then they're having all these people say, you need this, you need that, here's this software, go sign up for that. What do you tell those people to kind of work through that and decide if they do need to make a jump or a change, but to also stay focused.
Yeah, so to me, this is the area I think next to business ideas and all the juicy, downloads that you get. I think this is probably the area where the most business owners get really, really um the waters are murky. It gets muddy really, really quickly. And I think it comes back to boundaries and making sure that you're standing true. I've got a mentor that I follow, and she talks about breaking your business because you're bored. And that's one of the things that I see a lot of people do. And I also see a lot of business owners get stuck in procrastination planning. And so that's trying to figure out, oh, I don't, they're a little bit fearful of making the next step. And so they live in that planning environment. But then they also trick themselves to say, well, I'm not as organized in my planning as I want. I need a different software in order to figure out what that, there'll be a software out there that's just going to make things click. And I think a huge part of it is actually mindset. I know that that's not maybe what everybody wants to hear, but so I think one of the things that's really important, there's a couple different things I would suggest. The first one is if you've got a good system, trust it. You don't need to break it because you're bored and you need a dopamine hit. The other thing with that, though, there is a caveat. I also see business owners who sometimes stick in software that's not helpful or not useful, kind of as they're afraid to adjust anything because it is a big undertaking to change software. So I think it's important to listen what's good out there, but also use your discernment to say, is this actually going to help my business, or is this actually going to interfere with progressing to the next step? So, do an audit, but maybe only do an audit once a year, maybe every half a year or something, and say, are my systems, the systems and tools am I using, are they the best ones for me? And if there's a lot of resistance or it's clunky, maybe it's time to take a look at something new. But if everything is working, don't break it because you're bored. But there's some really wonderful apps out there. Nancy and I were talking earlier, and I really like the app called Sunsama, Sunsama. It's basically like a ClickUp and a Trello all kind of combined, but it's really simple and it's not super bells and whistly. It's enough for me to get my dopamine hit from my tech, but at the same time, I literally have it on my screen at all times and everything's prioritized, and I just know what my next check mark is that I need to make, and it just really helps me stay focused. There's actually a Pomodoro timer on it as well, which is huge. So but yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't break it just because you're bored and you want to try something different. But yeah, that's a tricky one because, like you said, there's a lot of shiny bells out there that are really attractive. But yeah, I would say to keep the blinders on and do your best to just say, okay, what I have now is working. It doesn't need to be reevaluated.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, a while ago, just because I kept getting people asking me this question, clients, other people, audience members, things like that. And they were saying, when is it time to switch? Or, this offer seems too good to be true. And, all these things. And I ended up actually creating a software decision checklist, which
Cool.
I will drop in the link to this episode. It's called, like I said, it's kind of like the shiny object syndrome checklist, but basically, it goes through my thought process, which is, if I am going to jump ship and I'm going to switch over, to a different software, number one, is the current software that you're using, is it working or is it not working, right? Is there still a pain point or a wrench in the system? Number two, ease of use, right? If this is something that's going to be much easier for me to use, and maybe I'm not using my current program as much, as I could be, just because it's not as easy. Okay, that's a huge one, right? I love ease of use. Third, budget, right? If it's cheaper, if it's more affordable, if it's going to answer, the same problems that I have, if it's easy to use and it's going to be more cost effective, let's go, right? That's usually worth it. Now, anytime I make these changes in my business, as far as switching over to software programs, if it's a major overhaul, meaning like we're going to have to move over contact lists and, courses and things like that, that's massive, right? We're going to make sure to have a lot of conversation. And again, it's got to be a really, really good decision. We've got to do a lot of research before that to make that move. And like I said, it's usually budget, ease of use, right? And, is it going to answer for all those problems that we're looking for? The other
Mhm.
thing too is I do have some other processes that I go through. If it's a software that's newer, I will go on Facebook and I'll check out and see if they have a community or like a help desk type forum where I can kind of check out and see some of the pain points and problems that people are having. I'll do a little research, right? I'll go on Google and I'll see what people are saying about the program or the product. But here's the other thing, and Amy Porterfield, has also said this as well. She's an online marketer. She said, guys, if you're going to switch, give yourself a deadline to make a decision. Okay. Because I know, and Christy knows, last year I was all hyped up on Go High Level, for example, which we didn't switch to, by the way. We have not yet. Not saying that we're not going to, but I got so heavy into it and learning all the different things. And I never gave myself a real deadline. And so we kind of ping pong back and forth. And I never did anything with it. And so I spent all this time, guys, like tons of hours researching and, joining community forums and digging in deep and comparing and even, signing up for a trial, all those things, and then never made that decision. So give yourself a deadline, right? Could be, hey, by the end of the week, or, after researching for X amount of hours, I'm going to make a decision. And then here's the thing, at the end of that decision, commit for at least 90 days. Okay. Don't jump into the thing. Okay. Because I've seen people do this in the past. In fact, we've had people in our programs before where, I kid you not, okay, my head was spinning for her. But she was literally changing platforms every couple months. She would start one and then she'd go, oh, this is over here. It was jumping from thing to thing. And I don't even know if she realized she was doing it as much as she was, but from the outside, I'm like, whoa, baby, right? It was like a little hurricane tornado of like just uprooting everything. And the thing is that is not going to be productive for your business at all. So just know that, yes, right? Technology is happening at a rapid pace. Give yourself some breathing room, right? Let some of the softwares get out there. You'll find out if they're going to be a really good fit or a solution in the future. Again, if it's going to be something that is better for your budget, easier to use, all those good things, but let it breathe a little bit. And I am a big fan, especially with all that's going on with AI right now. Take a deep breath and look at your business and really think about the bottlenecks and the pain points that you have. In fact, we have a business assessment on our website on thetimetogrowth.com you can take. Literally go through your business and think about, right? Every single business has the same core functions, right? We've got operations, we've got marketing, sales, and financial. Think about the different, right, functions. And within that, where are you still kind of like, I'm feeling some icky. If you're feeling some icky and it's really causing you to need to lean in and maybe make some changes, okay, great. It might be time to kind of, open up your eyes and look around and start to do the research. But again, with someone with ADHD, if you do not have some framework and structure, meaning, hey, I'm going to set a deadline, I'm going to block out 3 hours, or 2 hours to learn about this program, and then obviously make the switch. If you can't commit to those things, guys, please, just keep the blinders on and stay focused. Okay.
I was going to say, I've got two other little quick points after listening to you talk. The first one is that ADHD software for people that have ADHD is how people with ADHD interpret software very different. You and I both have ADHD and we work very closely together. I spend a lot of time in your business, but just because a tool works for your brain doesn't mean it works for mine. And I think that one of the things, especially if you're following a lot of influencers, you mentioned Amy Porterfield, there's, Jenna Kutcher, there's a lot of big names out there that really love certain softwares, but don't feel like you have to buy into their software just because, your mentor told you to. It has to feel really good for you. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've seen people come across is they try to force their neurodivergent brain into a neurotypical brain's systems. And I think that that's a big mistake. I think you have to try and trust yourself. And the other thing that I thought of when you were talking about it is when you're doing your research on a new platform, it's important to do your research, but I actually think it's important to get in there and play in it too. And so, if they've got a free trial, get in there, get your hands dirty, see how it works. Does it feel clunky? Does it make sense to your brain? Does it naturally flow to you? Does it make sense? So not just research, but actually getting in there and putting your hands on it too and seeing how it behaves and if that feels good for you, I think is really important too.
Absolutely. So, we just want to kind of leave you with a couple more things before we jump off, So a couple things that Christy mentioned, right? Sunsama, which is SUNSAMA, is a really neat program. I'm actually going to be checking it out. So I think it looks pretty cool. It looks like you can definitely create some to-do lists. I've tried so many. And if Christy's saying it works for her, it's probably going to be helpful, in some way for me. So I'm excited to check that out. But, guys, also keep in mind, and in fact, next episode, we're going to kind of dive in a little bit more, right? Because we're continuing on with the ADHD topic, with some other tips, right? And things that you can do not only in your business, but also in your personal life as well. Because again, the more structure and the more framework, that you can add to your life and to your business, the more really effective we can really harness some of the superpowers, right, that we have with ADHD. So, Chrissy, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with as far as just, a plan to really help them stay committed, and make sure that they're staying focused on their business and their, really software and goals?
Yeah. So I think it comes back down to having an accountability buddy. You and I've talked a lot about buddy doubling. Nancy and I will often just hop on a call together for 2 hours. And a lot of the times it's just to sit in the experience of somebody else and have somebody else kind of holding space for you as you finish the thing. Sometimes that's all it takes. The other thing I think is really important is to, we talk about having CEO days, and I'm not sure if you've mentioned them in your podcast before, but setting aside time in your calendar, maybe it's once a month, where you're actually going through and making sure that your priorities are aligning with where you want to go. Because it's really easy to get distracted. So just to make sure that you're really clear on what your next steps are and that you've got conviction with those, I think is really important. So just be really clear on your plan, where you want to go, and have somebody help to keep you accountable. Could be a spouse, could be your kids, could be a business partner. It could be a lot of things. It could be Facebook groups. There's a lot of places to find accountability. So I think those are the two big ones for me.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was all about how to beat shiny object syndrome in your business, and hopefully also help with your personal as well. So if you guys want to check out, like I said, that free download that I mentioned, I will post that in the description. So you can check that out. That's the software decision checklist. And of course, if you want to dive into your business, right, identify any of those, maybe little wrenches in there or, bottlenecks. Again, it's a great time of the year to do that. You can always visit thetimetogrowcom. We've got a business assessment on there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Tune in next week. We're going to talk about ADHD and share